Good day, everyone. I am Herlin Valares. I am a lawyer by profession working with the Public Attorney's Office here in Naga City. And I am also teaching with the Naga College Foundation College of Criminal Justice Education. So before I start my discussion for today, I'd like to take this opportunity first to thank the organizers of this webinar on voters education, especially Ma'am Marivic Balance. I'd also like to welcome our first year students of Naga College Foundation enrolled at the NSTP CWPS course. With this discussion, it is my hope that we would be more discerning of our candidates, more discerning of our future leaders. And I hope we would be able to value our votes more and we can see and realize the great responsibility that comes with our votes. And of course, my ultimate dream for the Philippines is for us to have good, noble, honorable, and very much competent public servants to lead our country. So to start my discussion, allow me to share my screen. And I hope you would be able to see it. All right, so my discussion is entitled Leadership, the Youth, with emphasis on you and the elections. So who among you here have that habit of browsing through Facebook and other social media accounts upon waking up, before getting up from bed, and preparing for work or for school? Sino ba sa atin ang may ganong habit? No? Bago tayo bumangon, Facebook muna, Instagram, Twitter. I think this is a common habit among all of us, no? Lalo na sa ating mga millennials. So, ako din po, ganun din po ang habit ko. Bago ako bumangon, I always make it a point to browse through my Facebook account, my Instagram account, and also my emails bago ako mag-prepare for work, right? So last Monday morning, pagkagising ko, I was browsing through Facebook and I came across this very relevant and timely post. It says here, your choice of candidates reflects your principle, outlook, and character, simply because you see yourself in them. Tayo daw pong mga botante, ang pinipili nating mga kandidato ay yung sumasalamin sa ating mga paniniwala, pananaw, at pagkatao. At ang dahilan kung bakit daw natin sila binoboto ay dahil nakikita natin ang sarili natin sa kanila. Sumasang-ayon po ba kayo dito? Do you agree with this post? Ako, I very much agree with this post. The reason why I vote for certain candidates is because I can see my principle, outlook, and character reflected in their values, platforms, and accomplishments. Sino po sa inyo dito ang meron ng presidenteng iboboto? How about a vice president? How about 1 to 12 senators? Or your district representatives perhaps? Or your party list? Or your governor, vice governor, board members, mayor, vice mayor, and councilors? Kung meron na po kayong mga kandidatong iboboto sa mga posisyong ito na pagpipilian po ninyo when May 9, 2022 comes, my question now is, have you ever identified yourselves with these bets and candidates? Nakikita nyo ba yung sarili nyo sa kanila? And in seeing yourselves in them, have you ever researched about their backgrounds, credentials, and accomplishments, or their platforms perhaps, that would make you say that they are your kind of leaders? Have you reflected on their values and principles in life, as mirrored in their advocacies, in their perspectives on issues that truly matter, and in their manner of treating other people? That is the question. Nagnilay-nilay po ba kayo sa kanilang pagkatao? Nagnilay-nilay po ba kayo sa kanilang mga paniniwala at prinsipyo? I hope you did. I hope you researched about them, and I hope you reflected on them. Because it is very high time for us now to see ourselves in the leaders that we are to elect. It is time for us, ordinary Filipinos, to get represented in the government. And this can only happen if we take the elections to heart. Kailangan po dibdibin natin yung election, yung halalan. Okay? So let me share to you my participation in the elections as a member of the youth population or youth electorate. Okay? I was only 16 years old when I first participated in a national election. Not as a voter, but as a poll watcher for the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or the PPCRV. I remember I reported for duty as early as 6 in the morning of election day, and I went home the next morning. Kinaumagahan na po. Yung boyfriend ko po noon, yung aking jowa noon, who is now my husband, ay nakabantay sa labas ng polling precinct. Nakaantabay just in case something untoward would happen, and ready to rescue me if the worst case scenario happens. Bakit ganun katagal? Bakit almost 24 hours yung duty ko as a poll watcher? Because back then po, in 2007, the canvassing of ballots was still done manually. And it was our duty as poll watchers to make sure that no glitch could tamper the election results. After 3 years, I covered the 2010 elections as a media student intern at ABS-CBN. We traveled across the province of Camarines Sur, kaya po kung makikita niyo dyan sa picture ay napakaitim ko po. Hearing not only the local candidates' platforms, but also their mudslinging spree against each other. Noon po uso na ang black propaganda ng mga politiko. It was my first time then to cast my vote. And I could still recall how disappointed I was when my presidential bet did not win. By the time the 2013 elections were forthcoming, my term as Naga City's youth mayor came to its end, but not my role as a youth leader. During a campaign rally entitled Youth Revolution, I was given the distinct privilege of representing the youth to address and encourage my fellow young voters to exercise our right of suffrage and to elect leaders with untarnished integrity who would heed the call of empowering the youth more. This was despite the fact that I am not affiliated with any political party nor with any candidate. My only membership back then was with the youth population. Hindi po ako affiliated kahit kanino o kahit saang party. Ang tanging qualification ko po kaya ako pinagsalita doon ay dahil youth pa po ako. Okay? So during the 2016 elections, I was then a 6-day-old lawyer. Kakapasa ko lang po. But with a better understanding of what I wanted in the next president of the Philippines. Yet again, unfortunately, my bet did not win. So as a public attorney during the 2018 barangay elections and the 2019 midterm elections, I was on election duty, armed and ready to render legal assistance to our public school teachers serving as COMELEC Board of Election Inspectors pursuant to the Memorandum of Agreement between the Public Attorney's Office and the Department of Education. So right now, you may be of the impression na, ay, seryoso ni ate sa eleksyon. No, baka ganun po yung iniisip ninyo sa akin. Well, tama po kayo ng iniisip. My fellow young voters, I do take every election of my life very, very very seriously. Why is that so? Because every election of my life will not only determine the next 3 or 6 years of my existence as a Filipino, but most importantly, it will dictate the future and would-be history of our nation, of our children, and of our children's children. For the past two presidential elections, my candidates lost. Natalo po yung mga kandidato o yung mga gusto kong maging president. But this time, I pray to God to give my vote the power to uplift the lives of the marginalized by giving my candidate 6 years to discharge the mandate of a president. One that is honorable, one that is people-centric, one that will uphold the rule of law, one that will reinforce our peace and order, one that will drive our economy upwards, one that will catapult the Philippines in the international stage, and one that inspires every citizen to be their own catalyst of change. My question, will my candidate win this time? Well, I do not know yet, but they say third time's a charm. So sana po magkatotoo. You may ask yourself, will your candidates win? Again, we do not know that fact yet. Okay? In fact, as of now, we may have varying choices for our leaders. However, I hope that through this voters' education, we will have at least a standard minimum yardstick in choosing our candidates or in rethinking our choices. So for purposes of this voters' education, let us scrutinize the qualifications of the two highest positions of the land, the President and the Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines. According to Section 2, Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution, the President or the Vice President must at least, number one, be a Filipino citizen, a natural-born Filipino citizen. Number two, must be a registered voter. Number three, must be able to read and write. Number four, must at least be 40 years old on the day of the election and must be a resident of the Philippines for at least 10 years immediately preceding the election. Okay. On the other hand, the disqualifications of a president, a vice president, or any candidate for that matter are stipulated here under Section 12, Article 1 of Batas Pambansa bilang 881 or the Omnibus Election Code of the Philippines. So these are the disqualifications of candidates. Number one, insanity or incompetence as declared by a competent authority. Number two, conviction by final judgment for these crimes, subversion, insurrection, or rebellion. Number three, conviction for any crime to a penalty that is more than 18 months or 1.5 years. And number four, conviction to any crime that involves moral turpitude. So these are the four qualifications or four disqualifications rather of any political candidate here in the Philippines. Here, we see that while the list of qualifications is inclusive enough to allow anyone and everyone to partake in the elections by running for any position in the government, this list failed to set the bar in terms of the qualities or attitude of our leaders. Sabi nga nating mga millennials, ay si ate attitude or si kuya naga-attitude. This election, my dear friends, let us take a different yet deeper and more relevant take on attitude. That is the attitude that is required of the people applying for our most sacred votes, for a chance to serve as our leaders and as this nation's public servants. To me, para sa akin po, there is one essential attitude that every public servant must espouse. But unfortunately, we fail to look into. Hindi natin nakikita bilang mga botante. Ano ang attitude na ito? Ito po ang attitude ng isang leader o pinuno. The attitude of a leader. While it is true that there is no one shoe fits all leadership style in any institution, whether governmental or in the private sector, we see nowadays that what the Philippines needs truly are leaders who are transformational, decisive and resilient, and service-oriented. First, leadership must be transformational. It must be geared towards making and leaving an impact in the lives of underprivileged and underrepresented sectors of the country. Leaders know that the people crave, demand, and are ready for real change. Gusto na natin ng totoong pagbabago, hindi yung scam na pagbabago. And to respond to this clamor for change, leaders must be willing to go beyond their comfort zones in order to reach the remotest of communities and to listen to the people firsthand. Dapat sila mismo yung pupunta sa mga tao para makinig. Leaders must be present on ground zero, for it is only in their presence and familiarity with the people's stories and the people's plight and problems that our government officials can advance policies that address their concerns and that can promote their interests. Leadership in this sense is largely a people work. The people must not only be at the forefront of our fight, but must be at the core of our advocacies. Now, ask yourself, do you want transformational leaders? Second, leadership must be decisive and resilient. To hold a position in the government is no walk in the park. I could attest to that. Hindi po madali ang magtrabaho para sa gobyerno, because it is a job filled with difficulties in circumstances, in people, and even in resources. Kapos na kapos po tayo sa loob ng gobyerno. Both natural and man-made calamities are staple dilemmas for our country. At dahil dito, we need leaders who show up in the most difficult of times. Who are these leaders? They are those who lose sleep, hindi na natutulog, nagtatrabaho ng more than 18 hours a day, just devising ways and means to extend help even in the midst of uncertainties. They are those who brave the war, the floods, the typhoons, the eruptions, the unseen virus, and even the black propaganda, just to give assistance to those greatly devastated. And they are those who bring to the front line of our bayanihan spirit private partners, so that budgetary restrictions could be augmented and to be able to reach out to a multitude of Filipinos in dire need. In the vast darkness of impossibilities, decisive and resilient leaders works with, and capitalizes on every possibility there is. Hindi po sila nagpapasakop doon sa mga sinasabing, imposible yan, hindi yan pwede. Ang totoong pinuno po ay bumabangka, pumupuhunan doon sa, pwede yan, kaya natin yan i-work around, posible yan, gawin natin. Now, let us ask ourselves, do we want decisive and resilient leaders? Third, leadership must be service-oriented. Servant leadership desires and produces excellent results. Hindi po mediocre results, but excellent results that would uplift the lives of the people and would not count how much it costs. At mas lalong hindi po magbibilang magkano ang pwedeng kickback natin dito. Servant leadership is inclusive enough to embrace all Filipinos and would not discriminate in terms of race, gender, religion, ethnicity, social stature, political beliefs, or whatnots. Servant leadership is ready to present evidence of work accomplished. Hashtag resibo. And does not rely on trolls, Photoshop, or fake news para lang masabing may nagawa sila. Servant leaders are accountable to no one. Not to their kapartidos, not to their campaign fund donors, but sa taong bayan lang. Leadership not founded on service is a sham. It is a scam. Or as we say, isang napakalaking budol. Now, tanungin natin ulit ang mga sarili natin. Do we want service leaders? However, my dear friends, knowing who or what we want in our next leaders is not the be-all and end-all of this very crucial 2022 elections. Because unfortunately, every time we Filipinos get the chance to elect our leaders and to change the narrative of our country's misfortune, the challenges we experience as a diverse voting population or a diverse electorate, they also intensify. The challenges we face as Filipino people intensify. And sometimes, they even evolve. No? Nagbabago at mas tumitindi. So there is a bigger task before us now. And what is that task? The task is to acknowledge the challenges and to conquer them as one united people. So as the May 9, 2022 elections draw nearer, we see vividly the challenges of number one, misinformation and fake news. Number two, apathy among voters, that very lingering apathy among voters. Number three, that ever persistent culture of vote buying and election-related violence. And number four, the threats of vote manipulation in the midst of automated election. First, with the heavy use of social media platforms, the spheres of influence of political aspirants as well as of their supporters and even detractors also expand. The problem with online campaigning is its power to revise facts, to peddle fake news, and to cut and paste spliced videos, all reaching a multitude of voters and giving us a distorted perception of reality that will affect tremendously our choice of candidates. Remember that a misinformed voter still has the potential of electing into power the worst candidate that we have. How do we combat this challenge of misinformation and circulation of fake news? We can combat this challenge by verifying information through accessible, truthful accounts from reliable sources. Fact-checking must be the norm now. Kaya po mahalaga ang role ng eskwelahan o ng paaralan dahil dito tayo tinuturo ang mag-research at sa research kailangan po natin ng fact-checking. Why do we need to fact-check? We need to fact-check so that we can also defend these reliable sources from the attacks of revisionism. Napakadami pong binabago, napakadaming binabago ang ating history. Ang daming taong sumusubok, bigyan tayo ng ibang salaysay ng ating kasaysayan. And these verified facts, they must be shared to other people so that we can build a community that knows the truth, that thinks of the truth, and that speaks and acts based on the truth. Because after all, an informed citizenry is an empowered citizenry. Second, I often get disappointed in people saying, hindi ko naman ramdam kahit sino ang nakaupo sa pwesto. Napaka-frustrating nila, di ba? But can we really blame them? Pwede ba natin silang sisihin? Well, I say no. Hindi natin sila pwedeng sisihin because their sentiments are valid. Valid naman yung kanilang hinanaing eh. However, the problem with indifferent and apathetic voters is their tendency to just either vote mindlessly for any candidate without scrutinizing the latter's qualifications, or worse, not voting at all. Ayaw nilang bumoto. O kaya, boboto man kahit sino na lang unang makita nila sa balota. Di ba? Napaka-problematic ng ganong scenario. This kind of voters, itong mga indifferent and apathetic voters, are those citizens who do not see the value of their votes, but they are ready to continuously hustle and bustle for their daily survival kahit sino pa ang nakaupo sa gobyerno. But you know, we can overcome this challenge of apathy among voters. How? By voters' education. That will not only reiterate to them cliches tulad ng your votes matter, mahalaga ang bawat boto, kaya mong baguhin ang sistema, or boto mo ipatrol mo. But more importantly, we have to present to them the logical connection between the problems plaguing the common Juan de la Cruz and our poor choice of leaders. Kaya naman po tayo nababaon sa problema bilang isang sambayanan ay because mahina ang ating mga inihalal na pinuno. Paano natin sila inihalal? Because of popularity, family name, dancing skills, nagbudots, ganun po ba yun? We have to remember that an empowered voter is an intelligent and discerning voter. So hindi lang po natapos sa informed tayo. Kaya tayo naging empowered dahil nag-aral tayo, informed tayo. At dahil empowered na tayo, nag-iisip na tayo. Matatalino na po tayong mga voters. Third, the apathy among voters na diniscuss natin kanina, when it is coupled with poverty or kahirapan, this will drive people to sell their sacred votes. And seeing the ability of money to garner votes and capitalizing on the hopelessness of impoverished voters, politicians and their armies also resort to the display of violence to propagate fear among the populace. Puhunan po nila yung takot tayo, natatakot tayo. Kaya ginagawa nila, binibiling boto natin or pinapakitaan tayo ng mga armas. Guns and funds have been their tickets to our votes. How do we overcome election-related violence? It is through reinforcing our law enforcement forces. We see nowadays that checkpoints and other police visibility measures are very much apparent. And they are great deterrents to the commission of crimes. How do we win over vote buying? Paano natin masusugpo ang vote buying? It is only by promoting our economy so that we can also uplift the standard of living for every citizen. And in that regard, no one, no Filipino, no voter would be in dire need for financial assistance in exchange for votes. Wala nang kailangang magbenta ng boto para may pangkain sa araw-araw. It is in this regard, my dear friends, that we are called upon to be our own and each other's poll watchers. Sana kaya nating bantayan yung boto natin. Sana kaya din po nating bantayan yung boto ng mga mahal natin sa buhay. Sana kaya din po nating bantayan yung boto ng ating mga kababayan. Fourth, okay, technology can be regarded as our best asset. However, it can also be our biggest foe when it falls into the hands of evil people. When evil hands control technology, that is a great disaster. With the advent of automation, the burden of our election workers and volunteers are lessened. However, we shall never turn a blind eye to the vulnerabilities of automated election. Vulnerabilities to hacking, ballot pilfering, and flashcard tampering as means to manipulate our votes. Dati, ang dayaan ay sa bilangan. Ngayon, ang posibilidad na dayaan ay sa pag-pre-program or post-program ng ating mga flashcards or sa pre-shaded na ang ating mga balota. How do we meet this challenge of vote manipulation? It is through our collective vigilance to safeguard our votes so that they can truly reflect the people's will. In this regard, it is essential for us to realize this cycle. If we only elect honorable leaders, specifically an honorable President of the Philippines, that honorable President would appoint only equally honorable commissioners of the COMELEC. And this equally honorable COMELEC commissioners would also deal with equally honorable suppliers of ballots and counting machines and equally honorable service providers. You see, cycle po itong pagboto natin. May impact po siya sa kung paano natin sasapitin ang susunod na eleksyon. Here, we see, ladies and gentlemen, that our votes create a ripple effect. Isang boto, pero napakalaki ng halaga, napakalaki po ng epekto. As young voters, we are not just ordinary voters. Hindi tayo ordinaryong botante. We are a powerful population of history-making voters. For we compose 56%, more than half of the total number of registered voters according to the COMELEC for this 2022 elections. Imagine, kung tayo pong mga kabataan ay magkaisa, kaya nating magpaupo ng matino, mahusay na presidente. Kaya din po nating maghalal ng matino at mahusay na vice-presidente na aalalayan ang ating presidenteng pinili. Sa Kongreso, kaya po nating maghalal ng mga matitino at mahuhusay na senador at kongresista na tanging mga batas na magpapabuti ng ating kalagayan bilang mga Pilipino ang ipapasa bilang batas. Sa local scene, tayong mga voters ay kaya pong maghalal ng matitino at mahuhusay na administrador ng ating probinsya, munisipyo o lungsod. 56%. That is among the 65.7 million registered voters in the Philippines, more than 37.015 million are aged 18 to 40 years old. So pasok na pasok po tayo, kasali tayo dito sa 56% powerful young voters. Therefore, lies in our very hands the potential to dictate if the Philippines will continue going on a downward spiral or will thrive to rise above the drudgery brought by past administrations and to provide a better life for us Filipinos. The choice is ours now. The choice is yours. Nasa atin ang kapangyarihang pumili. Nasa iyo ang pagpili ng tama. Now again, let us remember this Facebook post. Your choice of candidates reflects your principle, outlook, and character. Simply because you see yourself in them. Let us remember this Facebook post from this moment forward. Alalahanin natin to simula sa oras na to. Let us remember this. Let us recall this in our minds as we shade circles on our ballots on May 9, 2022, that is a Monday, the election day. As you imprint this Facebook post in your minds, let us also remember that you are your vote and that you are whom you vote for. I hope I could also hear you say now that I am my vote. With passion and dedication, let us say, I am whom I vote for. Ako ang boto ko. Ako ang kandidato ko. Remember, nasa iyo po ang kapangyarihan. You are your choice. You are your vote. Isang mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat at maraming salamat.